spoke about this. So it's nothing new. The only thing that really changed is creating 3 zones we talked about, again, 2 years ago. Currently we have 2 zones in our township that the officers patrol. What has changed is our call volumes. We actually, since 2013 to 2014, we were at 1,165 calls. So it was to show you that we are obviously a little more busier. Tonight I just want to tell you, I'm sure a lot of people don't know this, we actually have 2 officers working right now for 27 square miles. Since I was coming in here, they were backed up 3 calls. So I know we talked about this 2 years ago, and I think you guys asked me what it would make work for 3 zones in the township. Basically, we have 4 platoons right now, and it's not going to take much. And that being said, the 2 platoons I actually have is 1 sergeant and 3 patrol officers. The other 2, there's a sergeant and 2 patrol officers. Currently, you have 1 of those staffing on right now. And I know you wanted me to mention what it would take to do that. We need to hire 2 officers. I didn't go ahead and just make this judgment. We did some research. We looked at other municipalities around here. We compared our call volume to other municipalities. I think you also, I have responsibility to make sure I advise you guys what the officers need and how to protect the people that are protecting this community. I've heard from all the board members. We have many additional roads, housing plans, businesses. We all see it going up. There's more roads being developed and paved. We need officers out there to protect the officers that are working. On a given day, and you guys read the newspaper, we try to be obviously very transparent and get the information out as soon as we can, from school incidents to also just whenever there's making arrests. Approximately 2 months ago, we had officers working up the Bronx Road at one of our hotels. The officers were assaulted. There's people smoking marijuana in the bathroom, and the officers went in and they fought the officers. Our officers were trying to get there. They were getting strangled, basically. They were fighting our police officers. The crimes have gotten more violent. Whenever I have 2 officers working, we contact a custody officer. That custody officer is there to assist that officer that made the arrest. In the story I just told you, I would hope to think that everybody in here would agree that you would not want to put 1 police officer with somebody that is physically trying to assault the officer. Basically, again, the 2 officers, we're adding a school, which is over 800 students. I have people in here that speak about school bus stops. You know, I try to make commitments. When I have 2 officers working, it's very difficult for me to provide that officer to sit there and do traffic because the officer has to go answer 911 calls. This year, we're up to 100 calls compared to last year at this time. So we're not getting any less calls, we're getting more calls. I do not take incident numbers for traffic stops unless there's an arrest. If there's an arrest such as a DUI or any other kind of arrest, could be drugs, we get an incident number for that. So these are actual true numbers that this community is getting. I've heard it from the officers, I've heard it from the community. They cannot believe that there's only 2 police officers for 27 square miles. I understand that there's a new contract. The officers worked out a situation where the salary is going to be less than what the original salary is going to be. That would help the township. There's a tier, I believe now, most municipalities do that. That was agreed upon the wage policy as well as with the board of supervisors. So I feel, and I would hope to advise the board that, you know, it's not soon enough that we start recognizing at least the police department. I know there's other agencies. I spoke to the fire departments. I know the public works. There's the Southbridge EMS. We are aware of that. But I'm telling you right now, you need to understand that the police department is in need of at least 2 officers for the safety of the community and safety of the police officers working. I did compare basically calls, North Strabane Township, Peters Township, Canonsburg Borough, and Chartiers. We have more calls than they do. Allegheny County Police Departments, Collier Township, South Fayette, Bridgeville Borough, and Scott Township. We have more calls than they do. Those are the facts, and again, please consider at least 2 officers. We do have drug issues in this community. It's made newspaper. Please understand that when we do make drug arrests, we always try to make more arrests. Those always lead into more investigations, so unfortunately, a lot of information that I would love to provide you is confidential. That means it's an ongoing case. If we have an incident where we arrest somebody, believe me, they are willing to turn somebody else in. So that's a good thing. And for us to be proactive and go out there and address these issues, everybody could probably tell me in this room a story or tell me about something happening in their neighborhood. I want to address that for you guys. I want to be able to provide that officer for you guys. But again, I'm asking the Board of Supervisors to please consider at least having 2 officers. 2 officers is minimum to make this 3-zone work that we talked about. The 3 zones, again, would be split up between Lawrence, South Point, the central part of Cecil Township, as well as State Route 50 over here. As long as we ever can remember, and there's retired officers in here, we've always had only 2 zones. I do truly believe with the amount of businesses and the amount of people in this community that we talk about every single day, it's only fair to make sure we stretch those officers out. It'll help the response time. It'll help the fire departments, the EMS. When we go on calls, we'll have the additional manpower to help with traffic control or anything else that anyone else would need in this community. That's all I have.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Chief, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Wouldn't hiring the extra officers benefit the township too, because they won't be paying the overtime pay as much as if you're strapped when you barely have enough guys to do what you're doing? I'm sure a lot of these guys have to have overtime, and some of them I'm sure are looking forward to it, but some of them, they probably have more overtime than they want.
We do. We have special details, and most of our overtime, and I would be very happy to say 80% of our overtime is reimbursed. So when we do details, we have traffic details from aggressive driver, Buffalo click a ticket, we have DUI checkpoints, that's all reimbursed. We have details at the Hilton Inn, we have traffic details, we have details at churches that they hire us. That's reimbursed overtime. That's extra officers out in our community. That's just reimbursed, but yes, I agree with you. The overtime when we have to do a custody officer, that'll cut back because we will have that extra officer to be that custody officer. Yes.
It sounds like the extra officers all the way around would be beneficial to the township, to the community, and especially to yourself trying to keep this all running in an organized and efficient manner.
Absolutely. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay, do that? Sure. I don't want to gloss over this drug issue because I think it's very important. I have a teenage son, and it's very important to me. You mentioned the drug arrest. Reading the paper, it looks like you guys have had quite a bit of them in the last year. I don't know if it's more than a year before, but it seems to me like it.
Yes.
I heard that one that you guys were involved in right down on 980 was the biggest one in the history of the task force.
That is absolutely true. I'm glad you brought that up.
There's another one that was less than half a mile from the police station. A woman and her boyfriend were selling heroin in this parking lot, in the park parking lot, in the subway parking lot. You guys got that woman, and she was driving around selling the heroin to her 16-year-old daughter in the passenger seat of the car. You know, this isn't Washington or the West End where you're going to see it on the street corner, but it's going on. And you're asking for 2 officers, and what I'd like to see is somebody assigned full-time undercover to address this drug issue. And you can't do it for a month because these people don't work like that. You're not going to get anything done in a month. You've got to trust that whoever is assigned that position knows what they're doing, and give them 6 months or a year to show the results. And I'll
Absolutely, I agree with you. And we were just talking about, again, this is going on for 2 years, about just getting the minimum staffing for what the 3 zones are. And additionally, ideally, and I'm glad you brought that up, a 3rd officer would be able to do that. And I actually do want to have an officer taken off the road. Please understand, these guys are in a marked car in uniform, patrolling. They have to do surveillance, they got to do intel, they got to gather information. If I pull a uniform officer off that road, again, I'm taking them away from these platoons. If I can, and again, I asked the board this, and you know, when we originally started off with what would make these 3 zones work, but would help this community with the drug issues that we're having. I got the support from the district attorney, the DEA. We work very close with them, the Attorney General's office. That 3rd officer, if we would even consider that, would give us the opportunity for these drug issues, the school bus issues, the school concerns. We try to put our officers up in the schools. We have several elementary schools as well as the intermediate school. We're getting a huge campus in use. That would help us with the details, and again, I would definitely consider, with that amount of manpower, to take that officer, put him off in plain clothes, do the follow-ups, do the investigations, and again, it takes the burden of them having to answer 911 calls, because right now we don't have the staff to do that. They do it now, believe me when I tell you this. Unfortunately, I do have to provide overtime for that, but rightfully so, it's well worth it. We're making good arrests, and it's, you know, I'm glad to see that you noticed that a lot of the things in the newspaper we can't put in just because it's confidential. And that is very true. It was one of our police officers in Cecil Township made one of the biggest, it is the biggest drug arrest in Washington County ever. And Gene Batone has recognized that. I think our community's recognized that. And that's rightfully should be recognized. We do have a problem here. We're not a bubble, and you know, we do have a lot of incidents in your residential, the big residential, the mining towns. It needs to be addressed, and if we wait another 2 or 3 years or 4 or 5 years, we're getting more people. Mrs. Cowden actually even said, how many more roads do we have? That's even what the officers are patrolling. They're patrolling 15,000 miles a month. You know, we're definitely stretching ourselves to be proactive. You know, we don't want to keep being reactive. We want to be proactive.
Just a real quick follow-up.
Yes.
If you get a call now, let's say Mr. Pascal would notice his next door neighbor at midnight, 2 in the morning, the traffic's coming in and out, in and out, in and out. And it's obvious what's going on. Your only option to address that is to sit an officer either in his house or across the street or somewhere for a matter of hours, right, to observe that going on before you can even address it. And I imagine you can't do that now, correct?
We can't, unless again I do provide overtime. If we get a complaint, you know, we have a concern, you know, we do surveillance, we gather information, and we set up situations where we can make a traffic stop and arrest, and then we also, and that's, these are our officers working at DAs, and they're doing it all on their time, not only just to come in and do some of the surveillance, but they do it actually while they're patrolling in the marked car. But like you said, yeah, you're looking at hours. You don't know when people are coming in. You got to gather information, intel, plates, and everything else. So it's a timely thing, yes.
I have a question.